Hi, I'm Ariam, and this is everything I'm planning to read for Hrcyd 3.0. So if you don't know what Hrcyd is, it stands for the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, and it's basically a reading challenge with 150 different prompts total. Though these prompts do fall under different categories. This is the third time it's happening, which is why it's called 3.0. I've been aware of it for around a year and a half now, but I wasn't really interested in the first two. But this one comes with like a lot of choices. I'm still not planning to do everything, so I'll go through all of the prompts and what I'm planning to read, and I'll also tell you like which ones I'm not planning to do. Okay, so the first category, and the one that really caught my attention, even though I don't play D&D, and I played D&D once and I did not enjoy it, but it's choose your party. And basically you need to choose 5 different of the classes or professions in D&D and have your protagonist somehow represent that. It can be like literal, like let's say the class is a bard, your protagonist can literally be a bard, but it can also be like less literal. They can be a musician, an author, an artist, etc. So I went for a mix, I think. So the first one I chose is sorcerer. And for that, the book I'm planning to read is Sorcerer to the Crown. So obviously a sorcerer. Then for ranger, I chose Hunger Makes the Wolf because the main character is a mercenary. Then for bard, I chose Ida, A Sword Among Lions. This is a nonfiction about Ida B. Wells, who was a journalist. For cleric, I chose Infinite Noise because the main character is a therapist. And for fighter, I chose When It All Syncs Up. The main character is a ballet dancer, and Q, the person who created this, said that for fighters, you can use an athlete. Okay, the next prompt was choose your curriculum, which is you have to choose 5 different subjects that you would learn in high school and choose a book for each one. So for history, I chose Sisters of the Great War because this is a historical fiction about World War I. For gym, I chose Tumbling because the main character is a gymnast. For physics, I chose A Problematic Paradox. This is a middle grade book which is very focused on physics. For geography, I chose Vanished Kingdoms, The Rise and Fall of States and Nations, which is a book about, it's a nonfiction, exactly what it says in the title. And for religious education, I chose The Sisters of the Winterwood because this is based on Jewish mythology. Okay. Then the next prompt was Hrcyd Mashup, which is take one prompt for Hrcyd 1.0 and one prompt from Hrcyd 2.0 and mash them together and do that for $5. And I decided that I'm not interested in that, I'm not doing that. So the next category I went to is It's Your Birthday. So I have to choose 5 different things connected to my birthday and choose books for them. I'm not going to tell you exactly why I chose what I chose, because you can try to guess what my birthday month is, but I'm not telling you. But I'll tell you the books. So I chose The Last Neanderthal, The Accidental Apprentice, Hazel Bly and the Deep Blue Sea, Girls Made of Snow and Glass, and The Light Ages, The Surprising Story of Medieval Science. There was one last category for the purple prompts, which was Second Chances and Hidden Gems, where you're supposed to like take the examples that were given were like a 1-star review from someone, under 3.5 average ratings, and you gave a softie an F2, ugly cover. Again, that wasn't something I was interested in. So let's jump to the white prompts part 1. So again, the first category here was not something I was really interested in doing. It was periodic table, which is take 5 books that each have a different element from the periodic table in the title. I was pretty sure that would be very hard to find, and I just wasn't interested in like, I want to read books off my TBR, you know? I don't want to like try to find random books. Okay, then one that was easier was familial terms. Read 5 books with a familial term in the title. It wasn't as easy as you would think, but it was much easier. I guess I didn't really look for periodic table ones, but I decided for kid, as in someone's kid, Euphoria Kids, sister, Sisters of the Great War, mother, mothership, brother, little brother, and mom, tip-tapping mom. And Q did say you can use mother and mom or dad and father. Okay. Then the next part was traipsing through the regions. So you read 5 books in different regions. You can choose like whatever regions you want. So you'll see when I tell you that these are a bunch of very different regions. So the first one I chose was North Central region of of the US, which I chose for that, When Sue Found Sue. Then for West Africa, I chose War Girls. For Yorkshire, Not Good for Maidens. For East Africa, The Young Prince. And for Oceania, Ready When You Are. The next prompt is pretty similar. It's a road trip. You choose 5 books from different states that are not New York and California. And then she did add that you can also do other countries and their provinces, prefectures, states, whatever, but not the most major province or state. So I just chose a bunch of stuff. So for this, it goes all over the world. So we have British Columbia from Canada, for which I chose Son of a Trickster, Louisiana from the US, which I chose The Gilda Stories, North Aegean from Greece, which I chose The Wrong End of the Telescope, Texas from the US, Forget This Ever Happened, and Georgia from the US, My Jasper June. Okay. Then there's something called the secret prompt. And basically in Hrcyd 2.0, every month there was a prompt that came out during that month. And so the category here is not the secret prompts anymore, which is to fill them all. And I didn't feel like doing that. Not all of them interested me. The next one did. The next one was to read 4 different books, each with a different style of cover. So mine are Scene Setter, Lay and the Fire Goddess, Portraiture, The Dawn of Yang Chen, Object-Based, A History of Histories, and Silhouetted, Euphoria Kids. And then lastly for this category, for me, is titular counting, where each book has to have a different amount of letters and amount of words in the title, from 1 to 10. So for 1, I chose Asunder. 2, Hungry Jim. 3, My Jasper June. 4, Forget This Ever Happened. 5, Come Home to My Heart. 6, The Love Curse of Melody McIntyre. 7, Helgoland, the Making Sense of the Quantum Revolution. Helgoland, Making Sense of the Quantum Revolution. 8, I cheated. Basically, I could only find one book on my whole TBR that had at all close to 8 words, and it had a subtitle, and I just decided to ignore the subtitle, even though 7, 9, and 10, I included the subtitle. But the book is The Spirit Catches You and You Fall Down, which does have the subtitle, Hmong Child, Her American Doctors in the Collision of Two Cultures, but it's the only one, and I really wanted to do this. So it was like, that's the only thing that's stopping me. I'm just gonna cheat a little. Okay. Then 9 is Hustling Hitler, the Jewish vaudevillian who fooled the Führer. And finally, 10, We Stand Divided, the rift between American Jews and Israel. And like I said, there are 2 more categories for the White Prompts Part 1, which I just decided not to do, which is characters to author, where you take a main character's name and then you read a book with the author of the same name and then do that again. I just wasn't interested in doing that. And another one that's kind of similar, which is Shiritori, where you have to build a chain where you read one book and then you read the next book, you read the first letter of the title is the last letter of that title, and so on for like, I think 4 or 5 books. I just was not interested in doing that. Okay, then for the second part of the White Prompts, there's another category I wasn't interested in doing, which is numerical titles. Again, for the same, where you have to have the words 1 through 10 in the title, like Ready Player One. Again, I wasn't interested in doing this for the same reason I wasn't interested in doing the periodic table one. I just don't think I have the books on my TBR, and I'm not interested in like finding other stuff. Same thing with the Rainbow of Words, where you're supposed to find the words red, orange, yellow, green, lots of different colors in the title. And then we had a fun one. Then we had animal families. So you need to find 6. Ooh. I only chose 5. Okay, one moment, I'll be back. Okay, so you need 6 different books, and each one has an animal on the cover, but each animal has to be from a different animal family. So I went for Tyrannosauridae, which I went for When Sue Found Sue. You are allowed to double up on books. Then for the Corvidae family, the Orenda. For the by the way, Tyrannosauridae is obviously the family that includes tyrannosaurs. Corvidae includes corvids. Then for Mucilidae, which includes weasels, I went for Son of a Trickster. For Hrcyd, which includes true owls, I went for Enchanter's Child. Now, I'm not actually sure if the owl on the cover is a true owl or a barn owl, which is a different family, but I don't have a family of barn owls here, so, you know, if it turns out that it's a barn owl, I'll change the family. It's not that important. Then, for two basic ones, I went for Canidae, which obviously includes the whole dog family, and for that I chose Bitch on the female of the species, and Felidae, which includes obviously all the cat family. I went for Hungry Jim. Okay, so now I believe the next one, oh boy, oh yeah, the next one was not one I did actually. This was biomes, where you have to find different books that take place largely in one biome or ecosystem. This one was just stressing me out, so you know it's supposed to be fun, so I skipped it. Then, oh my god, there were like 3 in a row I didn't do. Remix, where you have to find 5 books that are like retellings or alternate points of view, etc. Again, I just don't think I have that on my TBR, and like I said, Food Pyramid, choose 5 books, there's 5 different kinds of foods. I know for sure I do not have a lot of books with food on my TBR, skipped it. But here's a fun one. Mother Nature is a books with 5, oh, again it's 6. See, I was not reading clearly. I'll be back. Okay, so basically you need 6 books that each have a different type of weather on the cover. So for this I chose Lightning Storm, Forget This Ever Happened, Balmy, My Jasper June, Foggy, The Hollow Places, Volcano Eruption, Lay in the Fire Goddess, Snowy, A Poem for Peter, the story of Ezra Jack Keats, and the creation of the snowy day. And for Sunny, How to Make a Wish. Okay, I really hope the next one I was right and it was 5 and not 6. Let's just see. Yes. So backlist author is read from authors. It doesn't have to be 5 different authors. It can be all the same author, but it's read from authors that I've already read before and I've wanted to read more of them. So for my backlist authors, I want to read from Robin Talley, The Love Curse of Melody McIntyre, from Vladimir Nabokov, Invitation to Beheading. This is actually a soft DNF, but she said you can read soft DNFs. From Kayla Carter, Tumbling. From Sylvia Moreno Garcia, Certain Dark Things, and from Catherine M. Vellante, or Vallant, try to pronounce her name, Deathless. Okay, then you have I Must Endeavor to Acquire These Creatures, which is basically Pokemon types. I've never played Pokemon, but I got their types, and basically you just choose based on the vibes. So I chose Flying, the bird of the sword, because the bird. Fighting, You Know I'm No Good, because the main character is a fighting sense of the cover. Ice, Hunted, because it's very icy on the cover. Bug, Serpent Mage. I could have chosen Dragon, because technically the creature on the cover is a dragon, but it just looked so bug-like to me. And Normal, everything within and in between, because the main character is very much trying to be normal. Now, finally, there is a final prompt, category, where you choose an anthology, and then you pick 6 books per author, you choose 6 authors and pick a book that they've written to read from them. And again, like I said, I want to read stuff from my TBR, I don't want to add stuff to my TBR, so this isn't what I'm going to do. But that's my plan for Hrcyd 3.0. Thank you for watching. Obviously, everything can be changed, if I just, these prompts are so flexible, almost every one of them can be changed.